Okay, well, welcome back again. I'm not sure what happened. I think it was something on my end in regards to connection issues. So I'm so happy to have you here again. And if you could just introduce yourself to the people so they can kind of know a little bit more about you.
Okay. Yes, my name is Dr. Aris, and I was born in Panama, spent quite a bit of time in the US, and I've been living around the world. I'm presently in the Cayman Islands, and I am known as the father of ethical gourmet raw food cuisine, and that's according to the Oxford Encyclopedia of Food and Drink. So it's been uh, 50 years now that
Wow.
I've taken exclusively of plant foods and 44 years of not consuming any cooked foods as you know it. So I'm now 73 and I have no ailments.
It's
My,
awesome.
my brain is expanding. It's not shrinking. And I'm so happy to be here. It's a joy to share with you and the Breaking Bread Village at
Yeah.
this moment. So thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you for taking the time to be here. I know you are busy, but this is so important. This conversation is so important in regards to health, especially right now for some people who are just now starting to look into their health, right, with this pandemic going around and different things of that nature. So I really just appreciate you for being here. So again, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, it's an
Well,
honor.
yeah. I'm just so excited. I just wanted to kind of ask you first. Could you um, describe your philosophy and the science of the Sunfired food? Like, if you can kind of explain that to us, along with your concept of electromagnetic foods. What does it mean to you, and how was how was it developed?
Okay. Well, Sunfired Foods, the word Sunfired, it's a word that I coined in 1979. I was residing in Harlem, New York at the time. And you know, placed in a position where, in order to defend and protect my life, I had to bring in organic foods, fresh
Okay.
produce into Harlem because it wasn't there, of course, in the 70s. And in doing so, I started a co op, and the co op eventually evolved into a for profit business. And the entire concept of the sun fired cuisine is that the foods that are basically the original, natural, and best foods for human consumption are foods that are cooked by the sun. And there's no big special mystique about this. It's foods that as we say, there's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
So we're talking about lettuce, watermelons, tomatoes, onion, garlic, almonds, walnuts, pecans, coconuts. We're talking about plant foods and primarily fresh. This food is what I call sun-fired foods when we do not interfere with it. Because in actuality, the growing period of these foods is actually the cooking process.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So by the time, a plant blossoms, creates those flowers, and basically the pot is on.
Right.
Whether it's a pumpkin, a watermelon, a cherry, you name it, lettuce, the little sprouts and things coming out of the seeds, the pot is on. So for the most part, it takes on average, minimum 3 months, some cases up to a whole year for this food to come to maturity, to fruition. So
Sure.
the entire period there is the cooking process. And basically, it is done all by the sun, all by the sun. So the sun, as it comes into our neighborhood every day, whenever
Yeah.
it shines, it is basically cooking the food. So the pot is on. And it's a very exacting system, very meticulous, you know, that you can predict it. We've come to the point where we know when the tomatoes are going to be ready. We know
Right.
when watermelons are going to be in season. And of course, humans have intervened on other levels that some of these things even grow out of season these years. But
Yeah.
still, that entire period there is the cooking period. And when we get a ready to eat, fully mature, uh, ripe and fruitful harvest, then basically we're getting a food that is cooked to perfection. So what we do at Sunfired Foods, we do not cook the sun out of the food,
Okay.
because the super macronutrient that we all endeavor to consume, in essence, is really the sun. The sun is our primary nutrition. And we see what happens when we live away from the sun. They say, "Oh, you're deficient in vitamin D, and then
Hmm.
you can't synthesize certain elements. You can't produce, enough friendly bacteria in your gut. Your immune system gets compromised, and so forth and so on." So since we know that we cannot just, reach over and grab a bite of the sun,
Right.
we grab a package sun ray. So that's what an apple is. It's a packaged condensed sun, a lemon, an orange, a tomato, a watermelon, you name it. All of these plant foods, they're basically condensed solar energy, solar vibration. And then we couple this with, of course, the next most critical nutrient for human sustenance is oxygen.
Right.
Oxygen. So obviously, the foods that are going to provide us with the maximum amount of oxygen is our preferred food.
Right.
We know what happens when we cut an apple and it starts turning color. Oh, they say, oh, it oxidized.
Right.
It lost oxygen. So ideally, we should be crunching on that apple and letting that oxygen release into our system.
Mm.
And then our next most critical nutrient is the super macronutrient, which we call water or moisture, liquid. So, of course, the foods that are highest in moisture are the foods that have more energy in it
Right.
without
Right.
expenditure of too much of the energy that we gather from that food. So we call this in food science the electrolytes, the electrolytic energies, or the electrical current that are found in these foods. So the more moisture, the more water that is found in a food item, the more electrical it is by nature. So we're talking the number one naturally grown plant food that has the most amount of water in it. And also to couple with that, it is the highest grown food on the planet as well.
Okay.
This is the water from the young coconut, the young green coconut. But of course, we want it direct from the breast, from
Yes.
the coconut. It has been packaged so perfectly by nature into
Yes.
the coconuts, which I term they are actually the breast of the earth. So these coconuts are hermetically sealed, just like the milk that we get from our mother's breasts. You know, I
Hmm.
mean, it just spouts right out at it. You puncture a hole in it and it spouts right out. It's coming at you, that coconut water. So it has the most electrolytes than any other food in its natural state on the planet. So it's the most electrical food. And the foods that are highest in electrolytic energy are the foods that are more energizing. And of course, as well, they're most cleansing. So they energize the system without the body having to expend much
Mm.
work to get that energy, which today they call it, sports drinks or something like that. And they try to come up with some form of, insult to the alligator and call it some gator something. Because, that gator got some serious energy.
Yes.
No, but the original life drink, life water is water that comes from plants. So the coconut is the epitome of that water. The next most electrical food on the planet that has the next highest level of electrolytes, obviously is the next food that has the highest level of moisture. And we know that food quite well. It is so laden with water. It is so big and massive that a tree cannot even hold it up. So it crawls on a vine, which I term really, these vines are more like water hose connected to the earth.
Yeah, wow, yeah.
And along the journey, along the path of this hose, we have bottled water, which, oh, wait, I mean, we're using the English language. Those damn English folks, they try to be so exactly correct. They call the food a watermelon.
Right.
Damn English.
Right.
Okay, no problem. Yeah. So for those of you who missed it, who don't know English, that you didn't understand that when you're eating a watermelon, you are drinking water. It is 99% water. And it has more electrolytes than any other food aside from the coconut water.
Wow, okay.
So we're talking a major ball of sunshine with water. But not just water. I mean, this is the beauty of plant water. It's not just any kind of water that's going to just hydrate you.
Right.
The water that we have been pigeonholed into drinking, which they call water, H2O, all that does is hydrate us. That's about the best we can expect from it. But hey, watermelon does the same. And watermelon grows in a certain season for a definite reason.
Right.
It's abundant in the summer, in the highest temperature zone of the entire year, the summer. We're talking 100, 110 degrees. Even this year, the mercury shot up to 125.
Yes, that's true.
And the major food that's grown in abundance during that cycle is watermelon. So please drink your water, eat your watermelon drink in the summer, and you would be as cool as a cucumber.
And
by the way, the cucumber is another watermelon. And you see it comes right after the watermelon in season. The same place you grew your watermelon, here comes your cucumbers crawling up right after the watermelon. So the watermelon got all the sunshine, got all the sugar in it, so it's nice and sweet. And the cucumber is a sugarless watermelon.
Yeah.
So you have abused your body and destroyed it and have diabetes and issue with sugar. You got the cucumber for you.
Yeah.
Sugar watermelon. So, our life has been perfectly designed, especially when it comes to our food. But of course, we got caught up with the so-called civilization.
Yeah.
And, with civilization, here comes the bankers, here comes the pirates, here come the big cartels that lock down your water sources, lock down your agriculture, and got hostage in these urban environments today, where our food options is just limited to what they're selling us in the supermarket, or the food store, wherever you go. But we have left the land. We're not growing anymore. We're not farming anymore. Look at the plan. For you to actually eat more than one watermelon in your entire lifetime, you're going against the plan.
Yeah.
All you need to do is one watermelon and throw all those seeds in your backyard, the front yard, side yard, wherever you throw them. And of course, your natural home is in a habitat where watermelons grow.
Yeah.
In the sun belt, you know, close to the equator. So you would have unlimited watermelons every year springing up in your yard. That watermelon spring full of water for you. But not only watermelon and the cucumber, you got tomatoes, you got oranges and apples and pineapples and grapes. These are all water that came from the earth.
Yeah.
That's perfectly packaged in this beautiful fruit, you know, that is like a pineapple. A pineapple is basically a water tank to support a plant, a flower that we call a bromelia. It's in the bromelia family that's full of bromelain. And that top of the pineapple, that's the flower, that's the plant. But it comes with a water tank, which we call a pineapple.
Mm-hmm.
Sustain the life of that plant, of that flower.
Yeah.
When we take that top and we break it off and we replant it in the earth, here comes another pineapple sprouting out of the top of that flower. Now, isn't this a serious ingenuity?
Yeah.
All those hundreds of watermelon seeds that you threw away, every single one of them is another potential watermelon vine. The tomatoes, the apples, the peaches, nectarines, cherries, mangoes, guavas. This is a food factory.
Yeah.
And if we had stuck with the plan, this planet today should be overrun with food.
Agreed.
If every single avocado that is harvested today from a tree that bears at least 300, maybe 600, 1,000 avocados every year, and every single avocado seed is another avocado tree, we should be living in a food jungle.
Yeah.
But hey, all right, so we know where we're at today. So let's not add, you know, any more insult to the injury of being, you know, so caught up and locked off from reality, even though it's in front of us every day. So the electromagnetic energy of these foods is where it's at now. And we're talking that balance between the electrical force, which is the high moisture foods that are very cleansing, very hydrating, loaded with vitamins and minerals. And on the other extreme, you have the foods that are dense, that are low in moisture. These I term the magnetic foods.
Okay.
So these foods are basically the magnetic foods or your fatty foods that are high in fat. You know, water and fat don't mix, so they don't have any moisture in them. So these are primarily your protein foods.
Okay.
And still we're talking about plant foods.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about pecans and almonds and pistachios and walnuts and Brazil nuts, avocados, olives, coconuts. These are the fatty-based plant foods that are rich in protein, that the body needs to be able to access them at a level where the body can break those protein down into a simple form of sugar. Because, you know, the human body runs on sugar.
Right.
Everything that we consume needs to be broken down into a simple grape-like sugar for the body to be able to utilize it.
Right.
So for the protein kingdom, we call these amino acids.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't deal with protein. We're not feeding on protein. We're using protein in order to produce amino acids. That's what the system runs on. And likewise, the group that are highest in sugar, natural sugar, or what is termed by nutrition, simple carbohydrates.
Right. Okay.
Simple carbohydrates are fruits, grapes, oranges, cherries. That sweetness in cherry is a simple carbohydrate, simple carb. It is sugar, direct sugar. And on the opposite end of that scale, you have what are known as the complex carbohydrates. So look at those two differences now. One is a simple carbohydrate, which is pure sugar. The other one is a complex carbohydrate. And anything that's complex is complicated. It's not easy to deal with. So what are carbohydrates? Which are actually not sugar, because they now need to be broken down into a simplified form, into a simple carbohydrate. They need to be broken down into sugar in order for the body to be able to utilize it, to access it, to create energy. So your complex carbohydrates are your grains.
Okay.
Simple, fine little quinoa or millet or amaranth or teff, those little fine seeds, to the large ones, the oats, the barley, the rye, the wheat. These are complex carbohydrates. And if you know anything about, essence and volume,
Right.
the larger the ones are more complex. The smaller ones are simpler. They're easily converted into sugar.
Right.
So the larger ones, you hear them today, they call them high in gluten.
Yes, I have a question about that in regards to that too, because I know that you have talked about that. So one thing that I want to ask is that if you could just give more detail on the gluten, because I know you call it the glue, and then also like pasta as paste, as you refer to it. So how do those substances affect our bodies?
Well, see, this is the beauty of language, and we just miss the language that we think we know,
Right.
and when you study languages, I mean, one of the first things you do is dissect the root of the words.
Yes.
And something that's high in gluten, what is the root of the word gluten? It's glue. Glue, period. So all of those little, suffixes that are added to the end, they just further describe what type of glue it is.
Right.
You hear things like glutamic acid, monosodium glutamate. This is glue,
Wow.
that will seal you up. So gluten is maximum glue. It just locks you down. So, so here we're talking about the classical example is the wheat. This is the one that everybody's afraid of today.
Right.
And these are the ones who think they know something. Because they come at you with that you think you know something, then they come at you with some other stuff and really challenge your intelligence.
Yes. Yes.
So wheat is the classical example. You get a wheat berry, and it is a berry. In reality, that's what they call them, the wheat berries. And of course, there are different types of wheat berries, just like, there are varieties and varieties. There are thousands of varieties of wheat. Same like there's thousands of varieties of apples.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Oh, yes. But, see, one of the things, though, before we even get all the way too far, we need to understand that wheat and grains of foods that are new to human consumption.
Mm-hmm.
And I say new based on the existence of human life on the planet. Based on historical fact, we've been on the planet for at least 1 million years.
Right.
And based on historical facts, we've only been eating grains, wheat, rice for the past 10,000 years.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's a big difference. Yeah.
But just even to compound the situation, we're not just talking about grains. That's just one of the complex carbohydrate group of foods. Roots, complex carbohydrates. But of course, just like the grains, there's variance between roots that are low in uh, starch is the word.
Right.
General terminology for the foods in these groups, these complex carbohydrate groups of foods. They're starchy foods. So within the root kingdom or subgroup, you have those that are lower in starch as opposed to others that are much higher in starch. And it
Right.
goes based on the depth to which they grow into the earth.
Oh, okay.
So the closer the root grows to the surface of the earth, the more water it contains, the more moisture it contains. So we're talking carrots, turnips, beets, parsnips, the radishes,
Right.
even onions and garlic, roots. But you juice them, you're getting water out of them. You're getting a high degree of moisture. You start going deeper down into the earth to harvest your root. And here you come up with sweet potatoes or small potatoes, like the yellowfin and these types of little small little baby potatoes and stuff like that. They don't grow too deep. And you juice them, they got some amount of water, not as much as the ones that are growing closer to the surface of the earth. But then you see the sweet potato, you take a sweet potato, you juice it, you take a baking potato and you juice it, let them sit in a vessel, in a clear jar or glass for about 3 hours, and you're going to see the starch settle at the bottom.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So you can do the starch test on any root vegetables, juice any of the 30 or 40 or so root vegetables you can get your hands on, juice all of them, and put that juice in a glass and let it sit for 3 hours, and you're going to see where the starch settles. And that's going to help you to determine which ones you really want to think that you can consume as food. Because that starch in those root vegetables, of course, the deeper the root, the more starch is in it. So the ultimate, you get down to the level of the tropical yams.
Okay.
Or the cassava, the ones that you find in the Caribbean and in Africa and these places. Yuca, they call the cassava, or manioc. So that those foods have not even one drip of water if you run them through a juice extractor.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The tropical yam, the yellow yam, the Trilani yam from Jamaica, the white yam. They got one they even call the Negro yam because it makes Negroes. It makes you Negro, yeah, because the starch settles on your knee and it just dries out, and then it attracts moisture, and then it starts to swell up in cool weather. And that's what starch does anyway in most places, wherever you are. The cooler the climate, the stiffer you're going to get, the firmer and stiffer. That's why, some of you that live up there, up in the extreme north in the ice box, Maine, Canada, and those places.
I'm in Michigan.
Michigan up there on the ice lake, come winter, a lot of y'all be caravanning down to Florida, talking about snow. You the snowbirds.
Yes, yes.
The bird getting out of the cold, getting out of the ice box for the winter. Especially the older you get, the quicker you want to bail out, because you'll be sick in the winter in those places by arthritis.
Yes.
Damn, doc, arthritis. What is my knee hardened with? Ah, yeah, potatoes, rice, dumplings, grits, you name it, starch. So those roots, the grains, and then on top of that, the beans. Another group of starch. Beans are 70% starch on the average. Yeah, they got about 30% protein. So a lot of us, we talk about the protein in them, but for the amount of protein you're getting twice as much starch. So look at that and just start thinking now as an individual, what did you eat today? How much grains, how much beans, and how much roots did you eat? what kind of load of starch did you put into your system?
Wow,
And
yeah.
now, because you cooked that starch, you destroyed what is called the digestive enzymes in them that actually convert the starch into sugar. Turn
Oh,
that complex carbohydrate into a simple carbohydrate. So back to our classical example, that wheat berry. You take that wheat berry and you soak it like how the farmer would do when they try to plant a new crop. They soak it in the nursery, and then within 24 hours or 12 hours after it's soaked, you drain the water off, rinse it, and within 24 hours after that, it germinates.
right.
So what is germination? Germination means the life of it comes forward. It's activated. Because when you get that dry wheat berry, that grain, the life force is dormant because it's dried out.
Right.
In order to activate it, you need to soak it to remove what is called the enzyme inhibitors. These are the safety valve, the locks that's keeping the life force dormant. But once it's hydrated and they get activated, and this life force is within the germ of the wheat, in the wheat germ, that's why they say it now germinates. It comes within 24 hours after you've soaked it. So now you need to do something with that wheat, otherwise it's going to spoil.
Right.
Since it's been moist, it got moisture hit it. It's going to spoil. But we call it spoiling, but it's going to now break down and evolve and start working its way into becoming a simple carbohydrate. So from there on, it goes into sprouting. So within 3 or 4 days, that wheat berry sprouts. So you put it in a strainer, in a colander, somewhere where it would drain. After you rinse it, after the initial soak for 12 hours, you rinse it, you let it drain, and then every day during the sprouting period, 3 to 4 days, you rinse it twice a day.
Mhm.
Because now that you have activated it, it's a living food.
Right.
So of course, any living entity is now going to generate waste. So you need to give it a bath twice a day
Yeah, I never thought of it that way.
to wash away the waste that it's releasing. Otherwise, it's going to die. It's going to suffocate in its own waste. Or you say it spoils.
Right. Right. Well, I never thought about it that way. Thank you for that. Yeah. Wow. Okay.
So when you see it sprout, it grows out. The roots start growing out of it. And now what the farmer does in the nursery takes that wheat berry and plants it. That sprouted wheat berry, they plant it in trays, or they use those little cups, depending on the size of the seeds, the grains, or the beans, or whatever they're planting. And now you see it starts growing. So within 10 days, you get what is called wheatgrass.
Right.
So these seeds that we call cereals, they're seeds for cereal grass, not necessarily to be eaten as cereal,
Oh,
like cream of wheat,
right.
or wheat flakes or whatever, corn flakes, oats, rolled oats. And no, these are seeds for grass, not to be, because by then, when it turns into a wheatgrass, when it grows into a wheatgrass, which now has 50% moisture at least, we migrate it. So I'm getting a feedback. I don't know if you have a mic or something that's open. Okay,
No.
okay. So anyway, we get a wheatgrass. So the wheat itself, in its whole form, that wheat berry is a magnetic food. It's a grain. It's low in moisture. It's high in starch, complex carbohydrate. It is a building food. Starches build the body by stuffing it. Eventually, they call it, inflammation. But we're stuffed, just like we stuff the turkeys. We stuff our body with grains, with starch. So we feel stuffy. We all stuffed up. Because these things are not breaking down. They're not being converted into sugar. Because first, you never even soak the wheat. They just took the wheat berry and pulverized it and made flour. So right there, it was not able to aid in its own pre-digestion, which means breaking down a lot of that starch, a lot of that complex carbohydrate into simple sugar. So that's what you get in the wheatgrass. The wheatgrass now has been transformed into at least 50% simple carbohydrate, sugar. So the wheat, from a magnetic food, a builder, a stuffer, getting soaked, germinated, sprouting, and growing, now it moves from that category of a magnetic food to what I call, within my system of the energetics of food, is now an electromagnetic food. What are electromagnetic foods? Electromagnetic foods are foods that are neutral, that are stabilizers. These are the balancers. So on average, they have 50% moisture, 50% water, as opposed to the electrical foods, which are the fruits, or mainly the foods in that group, the electrical food, because as a group, they're higher in moisture than any other of the 4 food groups. There are 4 major food groups when it comes to the plant kingdom. You have your fruits, which are classified based on the fact that they all contain sugar. And this is a nutritional classification, not to be confused with the botanical classification. Botanically, a fruit is any food that contains seed or seeds.
Right.
But nutritionally, not all fruits or not all seed-bearing foods, and you heard that word before.
Right.
That terminology, seed-bearing. And to you, and to you, I've given unto you the seed-bearing trees, and unto you they shall be your meat.
Yes.
So, yeah, I ran up on that quote somewhere. but it's supposed to represent, if there is a law of food, it's supposed to represent the universal law of food.
Exactly. Yeah.
Essence, meaning that the original, natural, and best foods for human beings are foods that come with seeds.
Exactly. Yeah.
Unto you they shall be your meat. Because the original meaning of the word meat is food. So you see how language evolved, and language gets in trouble if we don't know the mechanics of language. So when you're talking about, pecan, you're talking about a nut meat.
Exactly.
So we are not going to allow the flesh marketers to get away with that word and say that when they're talking about meat, it's strictly about animal carcass. No.
Right.
The meat of the fruit, the meat of the apple, the meat of the mango, it's food.
Right.
It's food. So now we have this wheat berry that's been transformed into an electromagnetic food, into a wheat grass. So the electromagnetic foods are all your green herbs, all green leafy vegetables, from the finest herb, from the dill or the thyme leaf, the finest one, to the big callaloo or cabbage leaf, or collard greens. All green leafy vegetables are electromagnetic. On average, they contain 50% moisture. And in that group of electromagnetic foods, besides your green leafy vegetables, you have what are known as your non-starchy vegetables. And non-starchy vegetables, we're talking, things like cauliflower, broccoli, they even put in their pumpkin and things of that nature. And then besides those two, within the vegetable group, you have what are known as the vegetable fruits. And see, here we come back to the botanical fruits. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
The fruit group, the primary fruit group is the ones that are higher in sugar, nutritionally. So you have your sweet fruits as opposed to the fruits that are acid tasting or subacid. So in that classification of the fruit groups, those classifications are based on the taste of the fruit. So your acid fruit does not mean that it's a fruit that produces acid. When you look, say, at a food combining chart, and
Right.
you see fruits listed as acid, they're basically acid tasting.
Oh, okay.
So I hope everyone is following me. You see, this is the type of educator that I am.
Mm-hmm.
I got multiple subjects open and talking about them back and forth.
No, I'm with you.
And all of this kind of stuff. But let me know if I'm losing anybody.
Oh,
Because
no,
you got
I'm with
to
you.
hang in science.
Yes.
Okay, so nobody's pulling the alarm and say back it up or not. Everybody's hanging with me. Thank
Yes.
you.
Well, this
Yeah.
it's so magnifold. It has so many different dynamics to it. So I can see how you have to kind of, I mean, it's a lot, to understand the concept.
Oh yes. So your fruits, your acid tasting fruits. Well, let's go back to the fruit groups. I mean,
Yeah.
we
Okay.
got 4 groups now.
Yeah.
And the fruit group, the number one fruit we mentioned is coconut water.
Right.
And coconut water is in a group all by itself. 100% water. And I'm talking about the young green water coconut that when you open it, there's no jelly in there. There's no pulp. There's no flesh. There's no meat or anything. It is just pure water. You open it, pour it out, water, you split it in half. There's nothing in there.
Wow.
There's no jelly. So that is 100% pure electrical energy, highest form of electrolytes than anything else. So when you're drinking your coconut water, please, you got to make sure you're getting it straight from the breast of the earth, because that's what those coconuts are. They're breast of the earth. And that's a whole nother dynamic that I could take another hour, even segue into, what is the coconut tree? What is this masculine energy? What is this tree that's shaped like an obelisk that has the formation of a phallic? That's the highest grown plant food tree on the planet, and bears fruits like breast. And it's a masculine energy that could have 300, 400 breasts, 400 coconuts hanging off of it. But of course, it's not doing it by itself.
Right.
No man is an island.
Yes.
It is anchored into the bosom of Mother Earth. So, mama's got them hugged. So this is the true semblance of what in some native indigenous cultures, they call the Pachamama, the father-mother relationship of the earth. And, its embrace of this masculine energy, this tree. And, as above, as how the coconut tree grows above, it might be 100 feet up into the air. So it is below, 100 feet anchored down into the bosom of the earth. And it grows, of course, where water is in abundance, primarily by the seashore, and obviously in the tropics, because it needs the force now of the sun, that God energy I mean, when you look at humans today and you see the only possible force that's tangible that we can really, feel, know in some way that's got a God power is the sun. And it affects everybody on the planet. That's why it is the master chef. It cooks for everybody on the planet, whether you're in the ghetto, in the suburb, in the luxury environment, out on the vacation, on your yacht, or wherever. The sun cooks your food for everyone. That is a God energy. So everybody's neighborhood gets visited by the sun, unless you're living a collision course with nature, away from where the sun shines. So you see what happens to your food choices in those environments. So anyway, that coconut water, 100% water, more electrolytes than anything else. Then as the moisture level in the fruits decreases, the electrical energy decreases. So we mentioned the watermelon, and for that matter, all other melons are in the next group, melons. So there's a saying that goes, melons, eat them alone or leave them alone.
Okay.
Why? Because they're on average, they're 95 to 99% moisture.
Right. Okay.
And if you know anything about one of the most fundamental laws of eating and the digestive system, that is, you should never, ever eat and drink at the same time.
Okay.
So that's why coconut water is in a group by itself. You drink water, you should not drink and eat at the same time. So when you drink coconut water, that's it. When you're drinking melons or eating melons, 95% moisture, minimal. Cantaloupe, honeydew, canary melon, Crenshaw, you name them. They digest and get absorbed into the system within minutes. So the less moisture in the fruit, the longer it's going to take to digest. So obviously, having a fruit salad with watermelons and bananas, combined eating together, that is a bad food combination. Because the watermelon, within minutes, the sugar from the watermelon normally gets absorbed into your small intestinal system because it requires very little digestion. But that banana is going to take you an hour or so to digest. So having banana and watermelon together is tantamount to eating and drinking at the same time, because the banana is going to hold the watermelon back from digesting, because the banana takes over the digestive system, the watermelon goes undigested, and watermelon sitting on your table, cut open for 24 hours, it's gone, it's spoiled. It breaks down. So imagine in your gut, 100 degrees, sitting there for an hour waiting for banana to do its thing. It ferments, it spoils, turns into alcohol. And this happens with all the other foods that you encounter along your way when it comes to bad food combination, especially mixing high moisture fruits or foods with low moisture foods. So even say just mixing like grapes and potatoes, bad food combination. The grapes are already sugar. The potatoes need to be converted into sugar. The grapes will get absorbed into the intestinal tract within 20, 30 minutes. Once it's digested, if you're just eating the grapes, it breaks down and that sugar gets absorbed. But if you're having potatoes, even a couple of hours after that, where you have all the sugar in your system from the grapes, the brain gets a signal when you eat the potato not to secrete. the digestive enzyme that is going to make that potato into sugar, that is going to turn that bread into sugar, because your system is already loaded with sugar because you ate grapes not too long ago. So the system is not going to allow you to secrete the ptyalin, the digestive enzyme that would turn that starch into sugar, because your system is already high on sugar. So here we go, bad food combination. So what happens? Maybe the grapes went on and digested, and you got the sugar to use. So now the potato is not going to get digested, because you cannot, the body doesn't want you to make any more sugar right now. You're going to get a sugar rush. So the potato goes undigested. What happens to undigested potato? It ferments. Undigested rice, macaroni, pasta, you name it. They ferment. When they ferment, they produce alcohol. Fermentation always yields alcohol. And anything that produces alcohol is going to also yield yeast. So you showed me a young lady that's got a severe yeast infection. I'll show you a starchitarian.
Yes, that's very true.
Oh, yes. And then to compound that, a lot of our sisters are now out there eating mushrooms, which are not food, which are also another yeast factory, because they don't break down effectively. They're fungus. And then for the wise ones who thought they got away, now they're hitting you with nutritional yeast. Why the heck you think they put the word nutrition in front of yeast? Yeast is yeast.
Right.
You're educated, and you're making your nice vegetarian cheesy stuff with nutritional yeast. And you're supposed to be getting away from yeast. You're supposed to be avoiding fungus. And now you're drinking somebody's kombucha, mushrooms, whatever, and getting fungicides. So let's back it up. We need to come on back home, family. We've gone too far astray, and we're following people that have been lost, totally lost. And here we are compounding this situation of being socially isolated in some cases, through poverty and many other stuff, lack of medical, facilities and adequate medical care. And now we're eating stuff that are not food, that are poisoning ourselves and creating all of these medical conditions that now we get caught up in a bigger net, a wider trap, because really getting sick is not necessary. It is not part of living at all. It is an unnecessary state of being. So we need to check ourselves and stop accepting this thing about being diseased, about being sick. There is no reason on this earth that you should ever be sick unless you have strayed away and eating stuff that are not food. So you need to re-examine your plate the next time you dish it out and see what's on there that's not food. And if you have any doubt, look it up. Ask the dummy, is mushroom food? And those little AI robots are going to tell you, no, mushrooms are not food. They are fungus. They're spores, or maybe sores is what they meant to say.
Well, that's really, really interesting. I thank you for that. That's a lot of that's just a lot of things that I didn't realize, especially in regards to mixing certain things together, right? Because we were always kind of raised and taught to have these different four food groups and, you eat this type of way. So, a lot of stuff that for me, even that I'm having to unlearn, right? Because it was just kind of hammered into our brain that this was how we were supposed to be. And I really love your philosophy on how we live in our bodies, not our houses. That's really a really profound statement because it's really true. And we don't think about it that way. I mean, we spend so much money on our homes and making sure it's comfortable, which is fine. But we don't put that same investment into our body. So I really wanted to talk to you about that. And you kind of touched on it a little bit just now, but can you elaborate on this? Just how bad our priorities are in this regard as taking care of our body. We spend more time in our home. So,
Oh yeah, well, see, this is the thing. You said the key word. We make our home comfortable. And since your body is your primary home, why are we making our body uncomfortable for us to live in? Okay. First of all, we are spirit beings dwelling in a body of an animal. This flesh, this body here, it's an animal. And it's a vehicle, it's a vessel for us to journey in this life. So we need to make sure that this body is comfortable for us to dwell in. So how are you going to be praying in church, meditating, and trying to hold your peace, and the little animal you're dwelling in is sneezing and coughing and farting and doing all this stuff? Now, those are signals that something is wrong with the little beast. It's trying to tell you something.
very true.
But we don't listen. We snuff it out. We take a temporary relief. We smell the armpit and we cover it with some deodorant so we can't smell it anymore. But we're festering and rotting on the inside, same way, whether you smell it or not. You go to the toilet and you take an incense back in there with you. You're ready to flush quick and all of this stuff because you cannot bear to stand the smell of what's coming out of you. That is your home. It's coming out of your home. So we need to take charge. We need to take ownership of this body, of this temple. We do understand that there are three essential things in this life that we need to look at seriously: food, clothing, and shelter. And I've never heard anybody said shelter, clothing, and food. Food is always first on the agenda. So before you think about buying that big, expensive, comfortable home and going in debt, make sure you buy the best food your money can buy. Even if you have to just sleep on a hammock, sleep on the floor, outside on cardboard boxes. Now you see some of our folks, they already figured that out.
That's very
Not to
true.
say that it's by choice necessarily, but please, your food should be on top of your budget list. And buy the best food your money can buy that is wholesome, healthy, clean, and from a plant source. I mean, since we do live in our body, it's nice to live in an expensive body after all. It's nicer than living in an expensive home and having a sick, rotten, decayed body that can't even relax it and enjoy the home.
Yes, tell it. Yeah.
You walking around with a dialysis and living in a mansion. Come on, something went backwards. You got cancer and living in a mansion. Something went backwards. You are this great superstar, the hero of Wakanda, and you living with cancer. Something went backwards. Die of cancer. Something went backwards. So please, let's come on back home. The body is the only thing we own. We need to defend it. We need to protect it. And we got this mind here between this spirit being and this body. So we need to not pollute the mind. We need to recruit the mind. The mind needs to be our best friend because it needs to keep that body in check. Because really it's between the both of them that we as spirit being don't have the proper temple to live in. Because the little animal is like, I want that. And then here goes the mind. Yeah, get it, take it. I'll get it for you. I'll get some change and get it for you. So the mind is not going to be at peace. It's not going to be necessarily be fully on your side if it's being fed by the blood that is coming through the animal, through the body, that is polluted, that is loaded with toxins, and is feeding the brain with this intoxicated vibration, this alcohol, this drug that you made from rice and potatoes. And to compound that, then you're eating animal carcass, old animal flesh that only breaks down through decaying and rotting in your body the same way it rots in your trash bin with worms and maggots and everything else. And that's fish included. These are not food for human consumption. So you run around calling yourself a vegan. If you knew what that was, you would defend your body as an animal first. Vegan is about animal rights. And the animal that you live in, you don't give it the rights as it deserves. And you worrying about, some bald eagle or some vegan, and you sleeping in one of the most endangered species on the planet, the human body. So once you protect and defend this animal that you live in, then the other animals ain't got nothing to worry about. They ain't gonna try to chase you down, and you won't have to try to even run away from them. And they don't want the kind of relationship with you that you've been cultivating lately. They don't want to be your pet. They don't want to be your guard dog, and they don't want to be your food either. So we need to get it straight. Our relationship with the universe is through the plants. That is our direct channel to the universe, is the plants. So once we stop eating from the plant kingdom, we've lost our connection to nature, to life.
Very true.
So back to our wheat berry now. We're still on the wheat, we're still on those magnetic foods, we're still on those building foods, and we transform that wheat berry into an electromagnetic food, a green leafy vegetable. So this is your fourth group. The first group is the fruits, high in sugar. The second groups are your protein, high in fat. The third group are your complex carbohydrates, high in starch. Your fourth group is your electromagnetic foods. This is your vegetable group. And the vegetable group is the group that contains all the foods that don't have either high starch or high fat or high sugar. So the vegetables is the group that have none of the above. No starch, no fat, no sugar in high concentration. So that's your neutral group. That's the stabilizer. Those are your balancers. So that's your green leafy vegetables, your vegetable fruits, and your non-starchy vegetables. So vegetable fruits, tomatoes, cucumber, bell peppers, hot peppers, okra, eggplant, zucchini. These are fruits. They contain seeds. Botanically, they're classified as fruits, but they contain no sugar, so they're not classified with the fruits nutritionally. In your protein group, you have coconuts, olives, and avocado. 3 foods that are high in fat that are also fruit because they contain seeds botanically, but nutritionally, they're classified under protein because they're high in fat. And under your complex carbohydrate group, you have your starchy foods. And within that group as well, you have fruits. You have foods that contain seeds that don't have sugar, don't have fat, they have a little starch in them. So they're known as winter squashes, including the pumpkin. They're actually melons too. A pumpkin is a melon, but it's low in moisture.
I never thought of it that way. Right, right. Okay.
And it's so low in moisture that it even have a little starch in it. Very little, very light starch. So you see your four groups of food. And now we back to the wheatgrass, a green leafy vegetable, 50% moisture, 50% of the complex carbohydrate. The starch has been broken down into a simpler sugar. But we're not grass eaters by nature. Human beings are not herbivores. The different groupings of animals within the kingdom based on what they eat. I mean, there are quite a few, but the major ones are your omnivores. Omni means everything, all. They eat everything and anything. Okay, so the pig is the primary example in that group. No limitations, doo-doo, feathers, roaches, ants, anything. The swine would eat whatever. So it's an omnivore. We are not omnivore. We're not omnivorous beings. The carnivores are the ones that eat carne, meat. They're carnivorous. And we know the animals in this group, they are equipped to do what they got to do to get their food. You know, they sleep during the day, so they up at night looking for their prey. And you know, these animals, they'll grab their meat, they'll grab their food, and they'll slaughter it themselves, and they eat it alive. They don't want dead
Yes.
animals. They don't want preserved chicken.
Yeah.
They would pass a cow on the highway that's dead. They don't want that carcass because they know that once the blood stops circulating in that animal, it dies from toxemia. And if they eat that dead flesh, they're going to become toxic themselves as well. Oh, that's why a certain religion, oh, they just drain the blood out, call it kosher or halal, pray over it, and well, still get you sick anyway. So I don't see what all of that fuss is about, you know. So, but still, bless their soul.
Yeah.
Spirituality has a very profound place in our world. But of course, spirituality based on nature is where I'm coming from, not based on religion. That's a whole nother
Yes.
packaging of nature. My
Yes.
religion is nature, you know, or I don't deal with religion, I deal with nature. That is the foundation of my spirituality. So it's my relationship with these animals that I'm dealing with. You know, it's my relationship with the plants, with the other living entities on this planet, animals, plants, and human beings. We have to coexist and we have to look out for each other. Some say they got dominions over the beast of the earth, but who has become more beastly than them?
Yes. Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So, so anyway, that grass, that green leafy vegetable, we cannot just grab the wheatgrass and chew it like a cow, like a goat, like a horse. We're not grass eaters. We don't have the capacity. We don't have the chewing capacity to masticate and grind grass down into a mulch before we drop it down into our digestive system. And our digestive system, you know, our stomach has multiple chambers. And I'm talking about the stomach of the grass eaters, the cows, the goats, the horses. Human beings, no, we got one chamber, the intestinal tract, the small and the large, and that's it. But they got multiple chambers, so they could flip it back and forth and wring that juice out, wring that chlorophyll out, and get all that green, rich energy from those plants that they eat. The chlorophyll, the iron, everything. They make B12 with it and all of that. We can't do that. We don't have the necessary gastric juices to break these things down. We don't have the necessary triturators or grinders, teats to chew them down like these animals. So yes, thanks to modern technology, we can run these green leaves through a juice extractor or use a blender and break them down and squeeze the water out. because that's what we want, is the water in the greens. And that's for most foods that are high in moisture. It's the water we want, and the gas, the liquids, the nutrients, the essence. We don't necessarily looking for the bulk, because we're going to use that up. We can use the bulk, but if we're processing it so it doesn't sit on us and become extra baggage or garbage or waste or pus or cancer, the ultimate garbage. So if you don't use it and you store it and you pack it, 6-pack, tri-packs, biceps, or whatever you packing it into, it's going to crystallize eventually. And it's not going anywhere. And you got to keep packing for the rest of your life. Because the minute you stop packing, the body's going to unpack and take it from Muhammad Ali and some of our other victims, of living these types of life without the proper regard as to how the body really functions and what are we doing with the body when we're eating all of this mucus-forming food, all of this fat, all of this cholesterol, all of this pus, all of this phlegm, all of this mucus, all of this starch, and not processing it, not utilizing it, just storing it and stacking it and packing it and compressing and sweating and lifting the weights and pushing the moisture out and crystallizing that cholesterol into wax, if it even gets to come to that point where it can actually come out. Sometimes they got to syringe it out of your air, compress, crystallize fat, cholesterol.
Right.
And the same thing with the mucus, with the starch. It's crystallized starch, where it's like crystal, where it starts cracking and breaking. And your doctor may call it a cramp. And you think it's something beyond your imagination, that it's not some starchy potatoes and rice and bread that you ate, that when your system get dehydrated and they get brittle and they crack up and they stab you, they give it a glorified name and call it a cramp.
Wow, I never thought about that. Okay.
And you don't see the association.
Yeah,
They call
wow.
it arthritis, and you don't see the association. They call it diabetes, and you don't see the association. They call it inflammation, and you don't see the association. Name it what you want to label it. It is still pus. It is still mucus. It is still toxemia, garbage,
Yes.
waste, filth. So being disease is full of, what it's full of. You're full of shit.
Yes.
That's what being disease is. So to get well, you now got to start pooping. Stop eating, back it up, back off, and push it out. That's a huge job now, a very challenging job. So that's a whole nother program.
Well, I did have a question for you in regards to the colonic cleansing craze. People swear by it, and I know you talked about how it actually clears our lower system of materials necessary to keep us healthy. So, could you kind of explain that briefly for us?
Well,
I know
I see taking colonics as like basically just pulling the emergency switch.
Mm.
You pull it. Yeah, if you're that backed up and your system is that filthy, you're constipated, and you start really becoming so diseased that the garbage is coming back upstream and smacking you around. You got these migraine headaches and all of this other stuff. This is just, the plumbing is backed up, and you need to free it up. Otherwise, you may get a stroke or some other stuff. Ulcers and tumors and you name it, fibroids, all these things, these are all associated. So yeah, but please don't get hooked on these types of things. Don't use it as a crutch so you can go feed on incorrect foods again or foodless foods. Because that's what
Right,
a lot of
right.
us do, whether it's colonics or laxatives or whatever. We become basically bulimic, eating to defecate. And we can't do it properly, so we go pull the plug and use some emergency evacuation, remedy. But then we go back and we just make room to put the same garbage back in the next few days. And then we get hooked. So there's more to life than eating to defecate.
Wow, that's very true.
If you get to do that. Because if you don't even at least get to do that, then you're talking disease for the rest of your life. Living on death row. Living on death row. Paying the price of reaping as you sow. So anyway, we got a long way to go. We got a lot of stuff to do. Just start with the fundamental. But look at that wheatgrass now and take that wheatgrass and run it through a juice extractor. There's special juices made to make that wheatgrass juice. And we're talking 1 ounce of wheatgrass juice could be an overload if you're very toxic. Because now we transform the wheat from a magnetic building dense food into an electromagnetic food, into a grass, and then taking that grass and juicing it and getting the liquid only and discarding the pulp, where the rest of the bulk of the magnetic energy of the starch lies. So when you're drinking wheatgrass juice, you're drinking an electrical energy. It's an electrical food, but it's so powerful of a cleanser because it has the same electrical structure, it has the same molecular structure as the human blood. Look at your blood under the microscope and look at the structure of a wheatgrass juice under the microscope, and the molecular configuration is quite similar. So it has an affinity to the blood. So it draws toxins out of the cells, dump them into the bloodstream. So immediately, yeah, you're going to get a toxic rush to the brain. Because when that blood circulates in the brain where it moves the slowest, those toxins in the blood that came out of the tissues are going to make you feel nauseous, dizzy. You might even faint or feel faintish. And you say, oh, the wheatgrass ain't no good for me. It make me sick. No, it's doing its thing. It's cleaning you out. So there's a lot of dynamics be all of those things, because now you've evolved the food from a magnetic, building, clogging, blocking food to the point of the level where it becomes an electrical food that it can release so much toxin so rapidly, but because it doesn't bear the amount of moisture, sufficient moisture to move the toxins out of the body simultaneously as it's releasing it, then you get, basically shocked with the garbage floating around in the system. So just drink your coconut water with your wheatgrass juice.
Okay, we have a question here. Is powdered wheatgrass good?
Is powdered wheatgrass?
Mm-hmm.
It's good, but the fresh juice is better. The electrical energy is in that living water. So yeah, you take the powdered wheatgrass, you're going nowhere unless you mix it with water. So you got to put the electrical current back in there. But it's still not as active. It's the same as trying to drink coconut water out of a can. The electrolytes are not there anymore. They've been destroyed by the heat, by the process of canning. So wheatgrass powder will do, but try to get the fresh wheatgrass juice. Or for that matter, really green juice. The wheatgrass is the extreme, but your green leafy vegetable juice, this is your crutch back home. It's going to release toxins, but not as violently, not as radically as the wheatgrass or even the fruits, which are more electrical. And one soft little secret is that realistically, the human body cannot simultaneously enjoy fruits and starch. One of the two has got to go. But because most of us view our food primarily from a budget perspective, and we see that we get a bigger bang for our buck buying a big sack of rice or a big sack of flour than buying a little bag of cherries for bigger money.
That's very true.
So no, it's not about the food in your life, but the actual life in your food that nourishes. So less volume, more value, more nutritional value for your buck. You're much better off. The stomach is going to shrink after a while once you get away from the big, heavy food. So you're going to find yourself eating less. But even if you're eating more up front by eating these very rich, expensive, $5 a pound cherries as opposed to 50 cents a pound for flour, the wear and tear that flour is going to do on your body, that you're going to actually eventually have to succumb to medical treatment. And getting sick these days is not cheap. It's more expensive than buying the food that you were trying to avoid from day one.
Yes, very true. Very true.
We got to come home. We got to take ownership. We got to take ownership. We got to defend and protect our lives, and we got to get good quality plant foods, and we should try to consume them as whole and direct as they come to us from earth with minimal processing, so that we can derive the value from them that we need to produce the necessary energy that our body constantly is demanding of us. And food does not give you energy. Please be mindful. Your body generates energy. The same way gas does not give your car energy to run. It's just one of the components that helps catalyze the car so that it can generate energy. And your body generates energy, and these materials, these fuels, which foods are, is to give you the capacity or help assist you in generating the capacity to produce the necessary energy that you need. And this is all when we start talking about our immune system, and we talking about the enzymatic energies of the food, then we start realizing that we got a bank. We got an actual food bank within our being, and we need to stop squandering it. We need to stop taking our capacity to generate life and enzymes. The whole human body function on an enzymatic level. And we know we have to produce these metabolic enzymes on a constant basis so that our body can do whatever it's designed to do. So every organ, every function of the body have specific enzyme that needs to be produced constantly throughout our lives. But if we slow down the production of these metabolic enzymes because we have accelerated the production of digestive enzymes from consuming so much cooked food, and getting a form of itis and go to sleep after those big meals. Oh, I got the itis, I'm going to sleep. I just had a big bucket of you know what. Yeah, because your body now is being called upon to generate an excessive amount of digestive enzyme to digest those foods that are coming into your system without enzyme, because you killed them. You murdered the lettuce. You murdered the tomato. You killed it. You destroyed the life. The enzymes are heat sensitive. And that is the vitality that is stored and is used within every single living entity on this planet, animals, plants, and human beings. Our whole metabolic process depends on enzymatic activity. So when you go into your enzyme bank to make a withdrawal, to generate some digestive enzyme, to digest that big bucket of rice and tofu, organic brown rice and all of that stuff, organic tofu, you are making a withdrawal from your life bank, because your life enzymatic bank Just like your immune system, it only has the capacity to generate or produce X amount of enzymes over your lifetime. So you can squander your youth and break your bank at an early age so that you and I could be 73 years of age and you got cancer, arthritis, high blood pressure, heart disease. You walking with you crawling with a dialysis. You're pent down in a nursing home. Come on, you broke your bank, and your body now don't have the capacity to generate the immune capacity, the immunological energy to defend yourself against a lot of this modern invasion now, with all of the toxins, all the chemicals, all of the processed food, and then now here we come with the radiation and the viruses and germs and bacteria that we got no defense over. So we're sitting ducks.
No, that is very, very, very true. I know I've taken up so much of your time. I just have one last question because I really want to get this out because of the season that they call it the flu season. And so I wanted to ask you this last thing, and I'll let you, let you go. I know the flu. You have said that it's actually a healing crisis, a cleansing. You said that a pill, shot, vaccine geared towards inhibiting this illumination process was not good. Could you elaborate on that for us?
Yeah, well, it's the elimination process. So when you going through, like for example, right now we just came out of the vernal equinox, or the autumn equinox. We better know it's for the fall. September 21st is the fall equinox, the change of season from summer to fall. So at these pivot points of the year, there are 4 of them: the 2 equinoxes, spring and fall, and and then the 2 solstices, the winter and summer, where the shift of weather, of temperatures, and all of these things, different bacteria or germs and things become more active. And also our body tend to release more toxins, involuntary, during these times of the year. So what in some cases may be termed the flu may just be a common elimination that's taking place, because we are connected to the grid of the universe, and we're going to be affected similarly based on what goes into our system. So we eat certain things and we're full of toxins, and elimination time comes at a certain time of the year. Then here we go, we start sniffling and sneezing and coughing and all this stuff going on, high fever and all of that. We're trying to burn it up. So the established medical routine is to give you a pill, a vaccine, or something to stop the elimination. And yeah, you're supposed to build up an immunity to it, because this stuff is going to stay in your system, and it's going to somewhat short circuit itself. But no, we are to really go with the flow and allow the system to eliminate according to the vibrations or the rhythms of the universe. So myself, I'm on day 12 of a juice fast.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'm on day 12 of a juice fast. Started right before the equinox. So during this time of the year, usually I just do 3 days: the 20th, 21st, and 22nd of September. Same thing in December, March, and June. But with what's going on around the planet this year, I'm like, well, let me kind of take an extra insurance out. Instead of just fasting for 3 days, I'm doing 30 days. My equinox fast for the fall. So then I'll go on and eat for another 2 months, and then when the winter solstice come around, I'm gonna go back on another 30-day fast. I'm not taking no chances these days. I got to keep my immune system sharp. I don't want to keep tapping into my enzyme bank trying to digest foods that are not really that necessary to do. If I can just
Yeah.
drink juice, like I got this juice here. This is a sorrel cooler that I call it. It's sorrel with cranberry and pomegranate. You know, sorrel is a flower, the hibiscus flower. You know, so I just got this little red juice here going on.
That
You know,
sounds good. Yeah.
cranberry, pomegranate, and hibiscus. You know, and it's marvelous. And I just blend it with coconut water, and that's it. You know, and so that's my juice for today. Earlier, for the latter afternoon of the day, earlier in the morning, I was doing more of I did like orange, uh, pomegranate, blueberry with coconut water. You know, so I drink a gallon a day during this time to just allow my body to use this energy to just ward off any foreign invaders that may try to come in. Let them know I ain't got no food for you. I don't have no yeast.
Right. Yeah.
I don't have no acid. You know, I don't have anything y'all like. So even if you come through my system, you know, you're gonna leave. Okay, you're gonna find the next way out because I'm not a good host for you. So that's the kind of attitude we got to start dealing with our life to ensure and protect our life. We have to insulate it and not have garbage in our system that these things feed on. Cancer is a group of scavenger cells that the body developed to eat up the garbage in it. So you need to starve them. Okay, but it's more than just those simple words. And then myself, since I'm not a healer, I'm not here to cure nobody. I can't help anybody with no disease. Only the body can do that itself. The human body is totally self-healing. So don't ask me what's good for this or what. Maybe you might want to ask me what's bad for it, Doc. And one of the worst things you could put into your body is starch and grease. So those fried potatoes, out the door. One of the first things you need to go. All of those flour, all of those grains, all of those starches that are processed with fat, that's one of the worst things you can eat. And then you go mix it with some animal carcass. Now you setting yourself up. These are the foods that generate the most amount of toxins. We're talking acid, serious acid, corrosive acid, and especially as a male, I got to protect my prostate gland. So I'm not going to allow, uric acid to come and corrode my prostate and have no prostate cancer, have no high PSA, when my body is dealing with producing a specific antigen or an antigen for a specific protein that got away in my system. So there's a lot we need to learn about the body. So what I teach is sharing you a form of self-defense by defending your life through your palate. Eating foods that are not going to pollute your body, that are not going to make you sick. Then you won't have to worry about healing. You won't need no herbs. You can even get to the point where you stop eating greens because the herbs are for the healing of the nation. And as much herbs that we've been trying to crave these days, yeah, we better get ill someday that we won't even need no more herbs and go back to enjoying our fruits, the fruits of life, the fruits of our labor. We see the abundance of variety. And please don't register sugar every time I say fruit, because you could eat all fruits and be completely sugar-free. There are many fruits that have no sugar. So we're talking about botanical fruitarian living. So welcome home, family. Welcome home to self. Take ownership, take charge, take responsibility. Your life is in your own hands. You got to protect it. You got to defend it. And hey, there's no more that I could say other than, check me out. If I could do it, you could do it. So check me out at sunfired.com. Thanks for posting up the website, sunfired.com. And it's a new site we just rebuilt. So there's a few little things on it. We haven't opened up the stores yet, so don't try to buy anything. We're not really merchants on that level. We're not out here just trying to sell you something.
Oh, wait a minute, because I was going to ask you about your famous strawberry and date jam.
No, well, we don't sell food. We teach you knowledge. We teach you how to prepare foods. so we can teach you the recipe. So we have an online course coming up. When we open up the shop, y'all could buy the online course. But right now, we're going a little slow with the shop and a lot of these things because we really want to build the site very, very strong. We have a television station going to be on the site. So a lot of these kinds of shows, you're going to have to come to sunfired.com, where I would love to interview you one day at the sunfired.tv one day.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, I would love it. Yeah.
Yes. So
Well,
thank you so much.
thank you so much. I appreciate you for being here. I know we had a rocky start, but it was well worth it. I appreciate your knowledge and what you shared with us. So again, blessings to you, and thank you.
You're welcome. Bless
Take,
up to everyone. Peace.
take care. Peace.
Okay.
Awesome. That was a wonderful conversation. Please go to sunfired.com and check out it's just so much information there. It's so colorful and so inspiring. Go there and check out the website and check out also, he does have courses, culinary courses. Please check those out. Again, thank you guys so much for watching. We really appreciate the doctor for being here today and speaking to us about, how our health is truly wealth. And again, as he stated, and I'm sure we've all heard before, how, the amount of money that we pay for recovery, that we could invest in our food and just being proactive instead of reactive is just such a big, vast difference. So let's try to put a little bit more into healing our bodies, which also goes back to healing the earth. So as he spoke about being in tune with nature and the universe, it is so true. So again, thank you guys so much. That was great. I'm so happy that he was able to come on. We had a little bit of a technical issue at first, so I had to come into my husband's his den, his area, so to just make sure everything got corrected. So again, thank you guys so much, and you guys have a blessed evening. Thanks.